It's time now for Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Kyle Benedict as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives in Yavapai County. And now here's today's Countywide.
Welcome to Countywide. I'm Paul David. As always, it's great to have you in studio with us today. We're going to be talking about Mosquito. She's with the Yavapai County Health Department, Environmental Health Specialist. I've got two phone numbers for you. If you're in the Quad City area, 928-583-1000, and in the Verde Valley, it's 639-8132 for more information. Or just go to the website. I'm sure there's a ton of information. Is there a ton of information on the website?
There is some,
Okay.
and also on the state of Arizona.
The CDC?
Yes.
The CDC website.
And the state of Arizona has some information.
Okay, so the health department sent out a press release this last week about the Zika virus and West Nile virus and trapping mosquitoes and taking the necessary precautions and getting ready for, well, monsoon's coming just around the corner, so we're going to have a lot more water, hopefully, a lot of water coming down to relieve the dry conditions. But they want us to start thinking about how we can prevent West Nile virus and Zika virus. That's the case?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. So tell me about what is West Nile virus. Let's start with West Nile virus. I'm sure a lot of people know what it is, but we get people that, come into the area all the time and may not be familiar what West Nile virus is.
West Nile virus is a virus that you can contract from a mosquito, usually the Culex mosquitoes. It produces flu-like symptoms, so your typical fever, headache, body aches, those types of things.
Run down feeling.
Run down feeling,
okay,
exactly.
Okay. And then, do you know how long that kind of lasts for, or does it vary from person to person?
It varies from person to person. Typically after the bite, it's 2 to 14 days or so, you start to feel these symptoms.
Oh wow, so it could take a little while before it even starts to show up. Matter of fact, you might even forget you had a mosquito bite. And then all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, you're feeling kind of sick.
That's exactly right.
Okay, so that's quick on the West Nile virus. Is it fatal?
I am not sure about that.
Okay, all right. And how about the Zika virus? Because that was the big one that came in a couple of years ago. The Zika virus was a big one, because I know I was telling you prior to the show that we had health department at that time, and the Zika virus was actually, the knowledge of the Zika virus was kind of changing as it came along, but now I think we're much further along with the Zika virus. So what is that one?
That's true. The Zika virus, once you're bitten by that mosquito, has that same flu-like symptoms, except they want to let people know that if you have a rash or conjunctivitis, that's indicative of a Zika infection. Zika virus is a concern for pregnant women, or people that are trying to get pregnant due to the babies having microcephaly. Okay,
microcephaly, which is the small head. So that's the big problem there. Do we have any Zika virus mosquitoes in Arizona?
We have. We started our trapping about 5 weeks ago, and we have pulled those Aedes mosquitoes out of West Sedona and the village of Oak Creek.
Okay, so I've heard, now before the show you said that several times, the Aedes mosquitoes, and I'm an Aedes guy. So is that what we're talking about?
Not
What
Aedes,
is the Aedes?
Not Aedes as in 80s genre, but Aedes as in the species, spelled A-E-D-E-S.
Aedes, okay,
Aedes,
all right.
Yes.
Okay.
Those mosquitoes, originally known as the yellow fever mosquito, come from the tropics. We first started seeing those in the United States in about 1994. Wasn't really much of an issue, but in the last few years has become an issue. And no outbreaks or anything like that in Arizona, but as we know from last year, Florida had some issues with it.
Okay, all right. So the Aedes mosquito is a problem. And then, so which mosquitoes are we looking for that carry because I think it's a specific mosquito, and I didn't know there was, do you know how many different species of mosquito there is?
There's about 50 different species of mosquitoes in Arizona. I don't know how many total different species are.
But just in the state alone?
Just in the state alone,
we've got
correct.
50 different kinds of mosquitoes.
Yes.
How could you tell something so small apart from another one?
It's tricky.
I guess, yeah.
We go to classes, we learn how to identify different wing types, whether there's banding on the legs, banding on the proboscis. They teach us how to tell the females from the males, those types of things. But it's just a lot of entomology type classes. Typically something that we don't do normally in our course, or even really study unless we want to be an entomologist. So the state puts these on, the CDC puts these on, and you just learn to sort them out according to their characteristics.
God, even that's got to be a challenge, because we all know what a mosquito is. It's just this tiny little thing, you know, and it's got to be a challenge to do something like that. I forgot to ask Monica to bring one of her mosquito traps, because I thought a mosquito trap would be really neat to have, because I've never really actually seen one. But that's what you do. That's your thing.
That's correct.
What is your job? Tell us exactly what it is you do with these mosquitoes.
With these mosquitoes.
Your job.
My job basically is to work in the lab to test the mosquitoes that come in from the traps for West Nile virus. At this point, there isn't anybody that's testing for Zika virus, but the West Nile virus is a fairly easy test. So how we trap the mosquitoes, we take a look at flooded areas. We take a look at areas that may be breeding mosquitoes. It usually has to do with water or wet areas. The trap looks like best to describe it, looks like a paint bucket. So it has a handle on it, and it has some holes drilled in the bottom. Okay. Inside is styrofoam. In there we put dry ice.
The dry ice, that's right. Okay, dry ice. Okay, keep going, sorry.
So the dry ice produces the carbon dioxide, which is what the mosquitoes are attracted to. Okay. Hang that out in the tree line by Peck's Lake or some of the monuments. A lot of times we hang them by washes. As the dry ice starts to melt, the CO2 will come out. On the bottom of this bucket is a fan, and it has a net hanging from the bottom. Once the mosquitoes are attracted to the CO2, come in close to that fan. The fan then blows them into a net, and they collect in the net. They can't get back out.
Oh my gosh.
That trap sits out typically for 24 hours overnight, and the next day we collect the mosquitoes just by reaching the net off the bottom of the trap. Put it on dry ice and transport it back to the lab, and then once a week I take all the mosquitoes that have been collected around the county for that week and test them for West Nile.
Oh my gosh. Just like that.
Just like that.
Just like that. So it's a paint bucket and that's why they come to me, because they love to eat off of me.
Correct.
A blood meal is what you guys call it. So that's all I am out there, is a blood meal in the forest. So when I'm breathing, exhaling, they're like, oh, look at that over there. This guy's got some blood on him.
That is exactly right.
Oh, and you just got to stop breathing. That's all you got to do. You can avoid mosquito bites altogether. Okay, so let me ask you this. What are some of the key locations in Yavapai County where the health department puts the traps out?
We do have set locations that have been set for years and years so we can collect the data, the historical data.
Okay, I gotcha.
As the water or the development, let's say over in the Prescott Valley, Prescott area, as that changes, we may have to move our trapping locations accordingly. One of the trapping locations that we have over in that area is Fain Lake. So that would be a good example.
Makes sense.
We trap by sewer districts. We trap by flood irrigation canals. There's a couple places in Sedona in the VOC that has seasonal standing water. We try to trap those areas, golf courses, things like that.
Okay, so when you say a seasonal water area, you're talking about, okay, so this is like a spring runoff area where maybe snow melt or the spring rains cause the puddles and stuff like that? Because I'm picturing like Red Rock Crossing, but maybe not Red Rock Crossing. Maybe.
We do trap at Red Rock Crossing.
Okay. Golf courses.
Always moist, wet.
Yeah.
A lot of times there's a water feature.
Okay.
We try to just pull the mosquitoes from those areas and see what we have. A lot of times we have nothing.
Okay. So you do move them around then? Because I know Tavasi Marsh in the Verde Valley has always been a popular spot. And then I know there was a few years where in Camp Verde, some of the locations in Camp Verde, there was a lot of water and stuff because of the irrigation.
Exactly.
So there's places in Camp Verde you guys trap. I know that for sure too. And then you said, well, let's take our first break and we'll come back. Okay, let's take our first break. Environmental health specialist Monica Kreiner from the Yavapai County Health Department in studio today. If you're in the Quad City area, it's 928-583-1000. In the Verde Valley, 639-8132. Countywide, back in just a couple minutes.
Education, what are you gonna do? Graduate and take some office job? Be like everybody else?
Or will you dare do something different?
Like, be a teacher. You could be my teacher. You got the skills.
The smarts?
Yes, you. You could be the teacher I never forget.
That would be cool.
Does that corporate job even have recess? What are you gonna make of yourself?
What are you gonna make of me?
Q102.9 plays all the hits.
Yo, what's going on? This is Drizzy Drake.
Ariana Grande.
Maroon 5.
This is Rihanna.
I'm Shawn Mendes.
Hey, it's Bruno Mars.
Ed Sheeran.
What's up, guys? It's Justin Bieber.
You're listening to The Weeknd.
Start your day with Brian James in the morning. You'll get at least 10 songs in a row during your ride home with Julie Page.
Zach Sang Show.
Catch the Zach Sang Show weeknights 7 to midnight. And Kelly Fox weekends on your home for hit music. The Q102.9 and 104.9 in Prescott and Cottonwood.
Stand with me. Be drug-free.
Stand with me. Be drug-free.
To make a difference, we must stand together. Stand with me. Be drug-free. Supporting our families and listening to our teens.
Stand with me. Be drug-free.
Stand with me. Be drug-free.
We are all one. No one is immune.
Stand with me. Be drug-free.
Let's stand together for a healthier community.
Stand with me. Be drug-free.
Welcome back to studio. Monica Kreiner in studio with us today. We're talking about mosquitoes, West Nile virus, Zika virus. There was a few other places we're going to talk about real quick that you guys trap in here in the Verde Valley. That are key spots.
We do trap. We trap the Camp Verde Sewer District. Red Rock Crossing, like I said. There's a couple of washes in West Sedona that we trap.
Okay.
And then we also trap all of the smaller communities just to see what we pull out of there. So you have Clarkdale, Wilhoit, Yarnell, Baghdad, those types of places.
All over the county?
All over the county, correct.
Now, when you set a trap, do you set just one trap or do you set multiple traps in one area?
We set just one trap in that area,
Okay.
come back 24 hours later, see what we've caught.
Okay, okay. And how many traps do you do? How many traps are out there at once? I mean, how many do you have to go through each week?
Well, it depends on how many people we have to set the traps.
Okay.
Typically, we have about 6 per week.
Okay. And then how many do you normally find? Is there like an average number of mosquitoes that you find in these traps?
It varies depending on the monsoon. So once the
Okay.
monsoons hit, we'll start finding thousands of mosquitoes.
Oh, wow.
Right
Okay.
now, with it being dry, we are getting 60 to 150 mosquitoes per trap.
Okay. Am I right in saying a mosquito does not go very far?
A mosquito does not go very far. The stuff I've read on the 80s mosquitoes, about 100 yards from the
Okay.
breeding site.
So they have a small home range. They're basically born and they stay in a pretty small area.
That's correct.
Okay, all right. So that's at least something good to know. So really, if it says like 100 yards, technically, if I don't have any standing water in my yard, the odds of, I guess, if my neighbors don't either, that eliminates pretty much breeding ground in quite a distance.
That does.
Yeah, that could have quite an impact. I didn't think about that, but yeah, it could have quite an impact. Okay, so I bring my traps. I got my traps. I bring them to Monica. What's Monica doing now? What's the next step here?
The next step is to open up those nets, dump them out, and see what we got. We like to euthanize all of them. Sometimes those mosquitoes are still alive when we bring them back.
Sure.
We put them in the freezer for 15 to 20 minutes, bring them back out. The next step I'm going to do is sort them out. We're going to see what we caught in that trap. Is it a Culex mosquito? Is it a Aedes mosquito? What are we looking for? Up until last year, we used to just throw all the Aedes mosquitoes away because nobody was concerned with Zika and all of that. So we just dumped those in the trash and just test for West Nile. But we sort them out and we count them. We count each species, throw away the males because they're not the biters. And then the females, we will sort into a test tube, put some BBs in there, add some buffer, crunch them up with a little, I don't know what you're going to call it, a little shaker that spins the BBs around. It crunches them all up. Centrifuge that liquid down, pull the supernatant off the top, and then apply it to a slide.
And then you know if it's got it or not.
Then there's a machine that'll read the number of units of West Nile that we have in that mosquito pool.
How long does this whole process take?
From start to finish, depending on the number of mosquitoes and the number of traps set, could be anywhere from 4 hours to an entire day.
Okay, so in a day you could tell pretty much around the county who may or may not have any mosquitoes.
That's correct.
Okay, or West Nile or Zika virus mosquitoes. So you said right now, because it's the dry season, it's the very dry season, that you're not getting quite as many samples, but once monsoon bumps up, we're going to be seeing that number increase dramatically.
Oh, most definitely.
Because they'll be breeding like crazy. So when a mosquito comes up and bites me, you just said the males don't drink the blood.
No.
Do we know what a male actually survives on? Or is their lifespan so short? Is it just to breed with the female and then that's it?
They are pollen collectors.
They are pollen collectors. Oh. Okay. Okay, so he's got nothing to do with anything, really.
He has nothing to do with anything.
Okay, but she is very mean, and she comes up and she lands on me because I'm exhaling, and she's getting a blood meal, is what you say. That's what you call it, a blood meal. So I'm trying to figure out. So a mosquito it hatches, it's in the water, it comes out of the water, and then it flies around, and then she jumps on me, she bites me, she gets filled up with blood. Then what does she do? Lays the eggs. Just like that? Just like that. Now, is she only going to get one blood meal and then she lays her eggs and then is her cycle over?
That, for the Culex mosquitoes, is basically true.
Wow, okay.
For the Aedes mosquitoes, they live just a little bit longer. I'm not sure if they actually reproduce a second time, but they do live a short time after they do lay the eggs.
So it's not like a cockroach that can lay eggs over and over and over again. This is a almost a one-time deal.
It's almost a one-time deal.
Yes. Wow, okay, so when that mosquito bites me and it takes that blood out of me, and I do that and I get her and I can see that she's taking blood out of me and that's it. She's not going to be doing anything. Okay, wow, that is okay. So they get one shot at it and that's it. But they're obviously very successful at it.
I think they are because of just the sheer numbers.
Yeah, sheer numbers is exactly right. There's strength in numbers. Okay, so we should probably really talk about, because we were just talking about a second ago, how if I don't have standing water, and that's the key, right? Standing water.
Correct. Standing water.
If I don't have any standing water in my yard, and my neighbors don't have standing water in their yards, and so on and so forth all around the neighborhood, and a mosquito has about a 100-yard radius of their life, that's the key.
That is the key.
Okay, so what kind of standing water are we talking about? Because I think some folks are going to be kind of surprised just how much water it takes for a mosquito to lay its eggs and be successful.
Mosquitoes can breed in as little as a bottle cap full of water.
I know, isn't that nuts? So I open a soda and the cap falls off and hits on the ground and it turns upside down. It is now viable.
That is correct.
How many eggs? Do you know how many eggs she lays?
I don't know.
It's got to be a bunch though, right?
It has to be a bunch, yes.
Okay, all right. Let's take our second break, okay? We're going to take our second break. Monica Kreiner's in studio with the Yavapai County Health Department. We're talking about mosquitoes, West Nile virus, and Zika virus. Stick around, Countywide back in just a couple minutes.
The Q102.9 plays all the hits.
Yo, what's going on? This is Drizzy Drake.
Ariana Grande.
Maroon 5.
This is Rihanna.
Mateo.
I'm Shawn Mendes.
Hey, it's Bruno Mars.
Ed Sheeran.
What's up, guys? It's Justin Bieber.
You're listening to The Weekend.
Start your day with Brian James in the morning. You'll get at least 10 songs in a row during your ride home with Julie Page.
Zach Sang Show.
Catch the Zach Sang Show weeknights 7 to midnight. And Kelly Fox weekends on your home for hit music. The Q102.9 and 104.9 in Prescott and Cottonwood.
This was me. And Mom and Dad. And my big brother Alex. And Jack. And this was the day that I learned that sandals get their name from sand. That jellyfish aren't made of jelly. That stars don't just come from the sky. That the ocean is bigger than all of us. This is the day we all got to forget that I was sick. And it changed everything. This was my wish.
I call you and say, I'm with the IRS. You owe back taxes, and if you don't pay today, you're going to jail. You can fix this by sending cash. And you actually believe me? Too smart to fall for it? Well, last year, Americans paid $100 million to guys like me. 1 in 6 people were scammed. Can you believe it? Well, you shouldn't. I just made that up, too. You are a little gullible.
Welcome back to Countywide. We've got just a few minutes left in the program. We do want to talk about if if I say I've got a problem in my yard and I call Monica and say, hey, Monica, I've got a mosquito issue in my yard. Could you come and check on these mosquitoes and tell me what I've got? Is that something we can do?
Typically what we do is we check from your address that you give us. We try to see what kind of trapping locations we have around your area and what we've been pulling out of those traps. A lot of times we will come out to your yard, and more times than not, we will find those little soda caps full of water, flower pots, the bases on the flower pots, or something that is holding water in your yard. We also check the surrounding yards to see what your neighbors are doing.
Okay.
If we determine that, you know, hey, this really might be a problem, we will set a trap in your yard. We don't do it very often because it takes a lot of resources to do that.
Sure.
But we will set a trap in your yard. We'll pull the mosquitoes out, and if we do catch any of the Culex or the West Nile virus mosquitoes, we will test them for West Nile virus for you.
We have to be pretty diligent about this too, because now, am I right in saying some mosquitoes need that water all the time in order for the eggs to hatch, or can some have the water go down and then come back up and they still hatch?
Those Aedes mosquitoes,
freeze-dried egg.
Exactly. Those Aedes mosquitoes, the Zika mosquitoes, they tend to lay their eggs on a water line, so a temporary flood zone. Those eggs can lay dormant for a while. So if you do have a flower pot that you periodically flood, you might want to check that for little black seed-looking eggs. Probably that mosquito has chosen that spot to lay their eggs.
Will they typically like float to the surface? Like you water the plant, you're going to see it's not going to look like the potting soil or anything like that coming up with it, but it's going to look like these. God, they got to be small.
They're tiny.
They're really tiny.
They're tiny.
Yeah.
You can see them with the naked eye. We have a trap called an ovo trap. It's basically a black cup that we put a special paper inside.
Right.
That creates a flood line, and then we put what we call stinky water in it. It's just rabbit pellets and water, and make them kind of a water mush out of it. That attracts the mosquitoes in. Once they lay their eggs on that paper, you can see them with the naked eye, but it is a black, very small seed-looking egg.
Okay, so it's seeable. So we're talking about, I mean, right now, it's just anything that can hold water, really. If you can do a soda bottle cap filled with water, I mean, that's like less than an inch of water, so, and less than an inch wide, so there's that. But old tires, old rims, anything that's got a divot in it that can hold a little bit of water.
That's correct.
You got to get rid of that stuff. And then you also got to think about the monsoon season's coming. So, okay, yeah, it's going to rain for a few weeks, but then it's going to dry out maybe a couple of weeks, and it rains a few more weeks. And so it flip-flops back and forth like that, at least until mid-August, end of August. Monsoon runs to the end of September. So, yeah, you got to be pretty diligent about that. Anything
that can hold water, those eggs are going to hatch in about 5 days. So that's what you have to be diligent about checking. You know, is this something that it might dry out in a couple of weeks? If it's going to hold water for 5 days, you run the potential of breeding mosquitoes.
We still have like a minute or two left. So have we found West Nile or Zika virus at all in Yavapai County yet?
Not yet this year, and last year, no.
Okay. Have we found mosquitoes that can carry those viruses in Yavapai County
Yes,
yet?
we have.
Okay, and where were those found?
The Culex mosquitoes are typically found on the Verde side, in the village of Oak Creek.
Okay, okay. Is it something we can even stop? It's a mosquito. Can we wipe out the cockroach?
I don't think it's feasible to think that you can stop it.
We just have to keep our heads about us and common sense, and just keep it as another one of those things that we've got to think about every day, and keep in the back of your head, but always be, I guess, thinking about it. And in terms of avoiding being bitten, and it's tough in Arizona, but you know, long sleeve shirts, long pants, bug repellent.
Correct.
With DEET.
Correct.
Is DEET important?
Is it important?
It
Yes.
is important.
Yes.
Maybe you don't know what's in DEET, but DEET seems to be what they always push. You make sure it's got DEET in it to keep the mosquitoes away. So we've got that. But then anything that's got standing water again. So your flower pots, old tires, wheelbarrows.
Yes.
You find those upside down. Even an upside down wheelbarrow, sometimes they've got that ridge underneath. I've got a plastic one, and it does have that mold ridge underneath. That can hold water all the way through it too.
Perfect spot.
Holy cow. That's an awful lot to think about.
It is.
That's a lot to think about. So how long does the testing go on for? Trapping and testing?
We typically start our trapping mid-May, depending on, we take a look at the temperatures. Obviously when it's cold, the mosquitoes aren't active, so we're not going to set traps then. But mid-May through usually into October.
Where does the mosquito start? Do they die off in the winter, or they hibernate? Or they got eggs laying around that just happen to hatch?
I would assume that they die off, but they're going to travel. in with, you know, we do live next to Phoenix. They never die off down there. So typically we'll get an influx from somewhere else.
Okay, I suppose, yeah, you get enough, you get a nice strong wind, or those spring winds could blow them up here. You get 5 or 6 or a dozen in the back of a vehicle, and they open the doors, they come out. Oh my gosh, okay, that's crazy. It's just nuts. All right, Monica, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
We've learned much about the mosquito. The phone numbers again for the Health Department, Quad Cities, is 583-1000, Verde Valley 639-8132. That's today's Countywide, and we'll talk to you again next time.